Hey guys, welcome to AP Euro. So today we're talking about chapter 8 because Dr. Moore has instructed us to, I think he's the only AP teacher, because last year we had Miss Raz and Miss Murphy, so I don't know. I think it's Miss Smith. Anyways, that's off topic. But Dr. Moore told us to read chapter 7 and chapter 8. I made a video for chapter 7, but it only went out to like a couple of my friends, and now I'm doing chapter 8 and posting it because they found it really helpful and nobody wants to read, and a lot of people are visual learners and they learn by entertainment factor. So best way to study for me personally, I have an audience today. So this is my audience. They're my stuffed animals. There's like some research about teaching others. You can do this with a friend too. Teaching others or teaching your stuffed animals actually improve your memory, instead of like just memorizing and like reading it over and over again and just torturing yourself. So that's what I do all the time, and that's why I feel like I have such a great memory. Me personally, I mean, school-wise, I don't remember what I was doing. I don't even know what I had for breakfast yesterday. I couldn't tell you. But anyways, we are starting on chapter 8 today. Whenever I scream at you, highlight. You better highlight that in your notes. Okay, that is some important key concepts that you may learn, some vocabulary, and honestly, if you don't know how to pronounce names, I don't either.
Charlemagne.
Okay, so let's get started with chapter 8. By the late 8th century, highlight that. Highlight late 8th century. Okay, Europe. That's a good highlight word too, but I mean, we know that the Roman Empire was in Europe. If you don't know that, it's in Europe. Europe was beginning to recover from the fall of the Western Empire because, you know, stuff happens and it fell. And the most important guy of this whole chapter 8 reading is,
Charlemagne.
Charlemagne. So the most important guy of this chapter 8 is Charlemagne. We can call him Charlie Mango if y'all really care. Like, that's kind of how his name is spelled. But Charlemagne, he was the king of the Franks, and the Franks were one of the Germanic tribes that like came in to the Roman Empire because they were getting forced out. They were refugees of the Huns. We don't know much about the Huns. They didn't really cover it really in chapter 7, but all we know is that the Germanic tribes were refugees, and the Franks, they took over the Roman Empire, well, with other Germanic tribes, and they were like, we're going to take over France, which was not called France at the time. It was called Gaul, Gaul, weird spelling, but they took over France, and they were like, we're going to run this country, so y'all got the other ones, we're going to run France. And he was I forgot how to say his name, Charlemagne. So Charlemagne was the king of the Franks, and he built the empire, covering much of modern-day France, Germany, and Italy, because the Roman Empire was huge, okay? Once again, we have an eastern side and a western side of the Roman Empire, so that's always, like, been something to know, okay? So if you don't know, also, the Eastern Empire is also called the Dynasty Empire. I hope I'm saying that right. I'm probably not, but Dynasty Empire, that's what I call it. You better highlight Charlemagne's name, by the way, and that he's the king of the Franks. That's pretty important too, and that he built an empire. So in 800, Pope Leo III actually crowned Charlemagne the Emperor of the Romans, and this title was pretty important, and it kind of like bonded people who lived in the Roman Empire ever since the Germanics came in, because, you know, if I was like living in Italy and like the Germanics like packed a bag, you know, they pulled up to my country and they were just like, we're gonna take over your country, I hope you're cool with that, but like, you can go to a different country, but like, I mean, why would you want to leave your house? And you're gonna have to carry those straws and bricks with you, like, on your way to the next country, because like, that's a lot of steps on foot. So they didn't want to do that. So they actually just lived still in the countries like Germany, France, or Italy, Spain, common ones. And they were just like, guess we're going to accept it, you know? So there was kind of always like well, you're not really our emperor because you killed our last one. So rip Romulus, Augustus. I'm probably saying his name wrong too, but it's fine. And anyways, it was a blend of Roman tradition of it was in a church it was a church ceremony, by the way, and it was a blend because it was like reliving the practice of having an emperor, like a Roman emperor, because the last time they had a Roman emperor was about 400 years ago when Romulus Augustus he was the last emperor of the Western Empire before it fell. Okay, so now he's the first since that time, and this is in the year 800. You can highlight that, and you can also highlight Pope Leo the Third, and once again highlight Charlemagne. Okay, highlight his name, and because he was a Germanic king, it's blended. He was actually a Frankish king, but still part of the Germanic tribe. But it combined the old Roman idea of having an emperor mixed with Germanic rulers in the West. So do highlight, what do I have highlighted? Okay, this is what you're going to highlight. You're going to highlight blended Roman tradition, highlight Germanic kingship, and then next you're going to highlight Christian authority, because he was crowned by the Pope in a church ceremony, which was his linking to God and his blessings of the church, and of Christianity. So Charlemagne didn't run his empire through like big formal centralized governments like ancient Rome had. So he actually ruled through personal relationships with nobles, who are people who were given land or authority in exchange for loyalty and services to Charlemagne. Highlight nobles. That's important. And there were no large permanent offices that could function without him. So basically what this says is that, Diocletian, he was an emperor at some point, okay? But he dies. Like, everybody dies. So he died. But the empire, like, still went on. Like, we had another emperor after him, okay? We had, I can't remember anything. We had Constantine. But basically, these large office government buildings, if he dies, they're screwed. Like, they don't know what to do next, okay? So they couldn't function without him. The West Empire fell a long time ago, like 400 years ago, because now the year is 800. And Charlemagne is like, bro, I don't want these bricks in my backyard anymore. Like, we gotta rebuild this empire, do something with it, because it's been years since Romulus Augustus, and like Germanic tribes, like, we took over. Like, we don't have any more emperors except for me, because like I just got crowned and stuff. So Charlemagne pushes back and brings back learning. He brings back old Latin textbooks or text, okay? And he also brings back church reforms, okay? Church school reforms, actually. That's what he brings back. And you better highlight those 3 words, okay? You better highlight, you better highlight old Latin text, learning, and reformed church schools, okay? I don't know how to say this word.
Carolingian Renaissance.
And he called this the Carolingian Renaissance. You better highlight that too, actually. That's probably more important than the 3 things he did, or he brought back. You better highlight the Carolingian Renaissance. However, he died in 1814. So he was emperor for like 14 years. And because of that, the empire actually weakened really quickly. So, like I said, they couldn't function without him. And in 1843, the Treaty of Verdun, highlight Treaty of Verdun, and in 1843. So you may ask, what is the Treaty of Verdun? It's basically his will. And he leaves the empire and splits it for his grandsons, and it splits into 3 separate kingdoms, and it sets the stage for political fragmentation, which means the power is split up amongst the grandsons and not controlled by one ruler, like not one emperor anymore. It is by all 3 of the grandsons. They all control like a different part of the Roman Empire. Like you got the left side, you got the middle, and you got the right side. They all run that. So central authority collapsed in Europe. They don't have that anymore because they have the split grandsons. Because our girl Charlemagne was like, Bob, Joe, and Billy, I really want you to have like this whole empire. Like, I know I didn't leave much money in the will, but you can have an empire if that's cool with y'all. And because of that, Europe kept getting externalized attacks. External attacks are outsiders coming in with like the goal of raiding or taking over the country and like ruling it. Ruling over territory is basically what I mean. So the Vikings in the north, the Magyars from the east, and the Muslim raiders from the south. Also highlight Vikings, Magyars, and Muslim raiders. Because the kings were too far and the world was dangerous. Like, they didn't want to go outside and like have a like mine drop, like, you know. People turned to the nearby nobles for like protection and for help, and this led to feudalism, where nobles protected people in exchange for loyalty and services. And now, while the West becomes fractured again, the Byzantine Empire, aka the East, is still strong, in case you were wondering. Like, they've always been strong ever since the fall of the Western Empire. Like, they've been strong. Highlight Byzantine Empire and highlight Macedonian. What was it? Dynasty. Highlight Macedonian dynasty. And they were especially strong during the Macedonian dynasty in the 9th and 10th century because they expanded their territory, they strengthened their economy, and they blended classical Greek traditions with Orthodox Christianity. Now that's important. You can highlight that Orthodox Christianity and the Greek traditions. And these are hard words.
Abbasid Caliphate. Abbasid Caliphate.
Highlight the Abbasid Caliphate. So at the same time, the Abbasid Caliphate in the Islamic world became the center of knowledge and innovation, advancing mathematics, medicine, and philosophy and astronomy. Highlight center of knowledge. And eventually, through trade, these ideas spread to Western Europe. Another major development was the spread of Christianity to Slavic people in Eastern Europe. The Western Slavs were influenced by Germanic missionaries, and they converted to Roman Catholicism, and the Eastern and Southern Slavics were influenced by the Eastern side, and they were influenced by the Byzantine Empire, and they converted to Orthodox Christianity. Highlight Orthodox Christianity. So this religious divide shaped the cultural and political identity of Eastern Europe for centuries, creating two distinct Christian traditions by the year of 1000. Highlight that. So Europe transformed into a bunch of regional kingdoms, each with their own culture, political structure, and religious practice. But while fragmented, the continent was tied together by Christianity, a lot of local rulers, and a shared medieval culture that blended Rome, Germanic, and Christian elements. So that is all for Chapter 8 that you really need to know. Thank you so much for joining me in my audience today. I hope you write well in Chapter 8, and I hope you pass the unit test that's coming up on the 22nd, I believe. It's either the 22nd or the 26th. Anyways, get your Chapter 11 reading guide due. Or done. Bye.